All right, hello everyone. I wanted to go ahead and put together another stream video for you guys. This is going to cover Tour 8 here, and this is going to be my primary bag setup. There's a couple things that I have in mind. I'm going to want the precision of the sniper. I really don't need a lot of high backspin shots. Additionally to that, I like the accuracy of Thor. So even at a low level, even a 2 or a 3, I'm going to keep it on as my primary because I like the fact that it starts off with much higher accuracy than Extra Mile does. And even at a 2 or 3, you're going to have plenty. With that in mind, I'm just going to put the Extra Mile on as bag 2 just in case I need that extra length. So that's going to be the only change. Aside from that, I'm going to have the Goliath on. There is one potential shootout that I can think of. There's an equal beak hole that is a par 3 where you could potentially need every last bit of yardage. So having that full distance number is going to be important. So with that in mind, we're going to have to pretty much keep that Goliath on at all times for this tour just to make sure that we have the length covered. I'm going to try to get by as thrifty as I can, but keep in mind that if a bunch of par 5s come up, you'll probably want to use something a little bit closer to a Titan ball just to make sure that you have enough power to get there. So let's get underway here. I believe I have the right bag on. Looks like I believe I do. And let's jump in here real quick. See if we can't grab some opponents. It's going to be similar format to last time. I'm going to do about an hour here. If you guys watch my Tour 7, also keep in mind I'm going to write all the hole notes in the bottom section as well. So you'll be able to find the holes individually if you'd like in the description of this video. So let's take a look here. This is definitely one of the harder holes. I find this to be one of the harder holes in the game. Typically what I'll do for this hole is bring a power 3 ball just for the second shot, because there'll be times where having that extra power 3 ball, you actually get to the green with your second shot. So with that in mind, I am going to go this way. I also like the accuracy of the Thor's hammer, so I am going to try to keep the Thor's hammer in this situation. I'm going to try to pretty much, as long as I don't think that I'm going to take myself out of range for some reason, that's going to be pretty standard play for me to just use the Thor hammer to have that extra, significant. It's like twice as accurate. So let's take a look here. We're going to be going into overpower, so I might use plus 5%. We're going to be using the max number, 8.4. And very close to 5.3-ish rings. Typically, I'll try to tone my backspin down. Won't really have the option with a side wind, though. Pretty much going to have to go at this pretty full. So we're going to be looking towards 5 rings here. And very little curl. I might just back off the power just a little bit, just for accuracy. So you can see that, maybe I just go into the dark orange. And the hopes is that we kind of shoot it down here. It usually ends up checking up. I did get a little bit closer to the hole than my opponent, and I also have that extra length if, in fact, I get to use that, which it looks like it's going to be moot here. As you can see, it's a headwind. We're going to be playing for a layup anytime you get a wind like this. So, one of the things, if you guys just started playing around with the new wind directional model, you're going to see that I really don't touch elevation a lot. I won't need it very much. You can see my landing zone is kind of pretty flat. I may use minus 5% here, but it's going to be very, very minimal. You're going to see that elevation is really not much of a factor. So minus 20% is going to be a massive. That's going to be pretty much the most uphill hole in the game versus plus 20% is going to be the most downhill hole in the game. And those are very isolated cases, so you won't see it very much. But the first thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to size up the difference. In this situation, I'm going to be using the max, so I'm just going to pretty much use my max number here, right around 12 rings. But as I mentioned, I'll probably just use a -5 in this situation. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of set up more towards here and try to play the spin up towards where I want with some curl to try to get this up as far as possible. And we're going to try to kind of set towards the max line to avoid overpower. So that's what you can see me doing there. And you can see my method here. Didn't want that great ball, but hopefully I accommodated enough that it doesn't clip the rough. Nope. So surely enough, there I am in the rough, potentially throwing away an opportunity because I can still make this pretty regularly from that fairway. You know, it really just required, that might have been like a 2-ring great ball. It's not going to take me out of the hole completely, especially with as straight as the wind is. It's just going to kind of come down to perfect ball. Had I been in the fairway, I think that there was probably about, you know, an 80% chance I felt confident that I was going to make it from the fairway. So kind of an unforced error. For some reason, I always do that on this hole. I think, you know, something about the animation on this hole, I just think that the needle swings just a tiny bit slower, or it'll get a little bit hesitant to come back. So because of that fact, I do this kind of regularly on this hole, and I swear, and it's only on the second shot. So, you know, I feel pretty confident that there's something, you know, with the way that the screen renders that causes me to do that. But let's take a look here. First thing that I'll typically do is try to size up different distance. I'm going to be under a 1/4 club, and you also see that the hole is way uphill here. So under a 1/4 club, we're going to use the wind direction. And as I mentioned, under 1/4 club is going to be down here. Oh, I didn't input a wind. 0.7 rings. So we're going to see if I can't put this spin on real quick. And oh, it gave me the out of time. I can't believe it. I thought I was better with the clock there. Apparently I wasn't. So might end up losing this one. If I would have input my win there, I wouldn't have got, you know, I wouldn't have got that timeout. When I was sitting there for 2 seconds without wind, you know, that was part of the main reason that went awry. But I could still put this in. It's just going to require perfect ball, you know, same slider positioning that I was looking, 0.6 rings this time. And we'll see if we can't just pitch this in. You can see what I do with my guide. I make sure that I put it onto the green. That's kind of step one, make sure that it gets onto the green. And this time we can be just a little bit more precise as well. So you can see with what the ball guide change looks like. And then it pretty much just comes down to perfect ball timing. It looks like I got the perfect ball. I do believe that there's going to be a good chance that this goes in. So surely enough, there it is. This is going to help you guys in the long run anyway with that timeout, so that way we can see as many shootouts as possible. Had I got the perfect ball there, which, you know, I released on my screen, but it said out of time. So, I felt pretty good that I might have got the perfect ball. There was a really good chance. I felt my release was very good there. So what you'll see me do here, first off, I'll have to size this up. You can see I'm towards min club a little bit, but I'm going to be pulling up. So I need to make sure that I'm using maybe like 30% here. So I'm going to be using 30%, which is 9 rings. Other than that, I'm going to use wind effect. So you might see me push it through the hole a little bit, similar to this, because of the wind effect. And other than that, we're going to use 9-ish rings right perfect ball. And this is one of the reasons that we want to bring the sniper, because we like the accuracy. It looks like I was a little bit heavy on my offset, but inside 2 yards with a 9 wind, it's relatively good speaking. There's a good chance that'll hold on, especially with my opponent up in the 10. You have to be considering wind effect, and also have, really good shot execution. So, the winner of the shootouts pretty much factor in that the best. But also keep in mind that we're landing kind of on a side hill on this. So sometimes it's just all about kind of where your ball lands on the hill, and does it pitch towards the hole, or does it kind of, you can see mine deflected just a little bit more right. And that has to do with the severity of the slope, and it just causes it to kind of kick over. So let's take a look here. It looks like this one's going to be checking up. So as I mentioned, the best players, the ones that win more times than not, they're going to be thinking about that wind effect, and they're going to do just, a little bit better job of using the wind effect. And it looks like my opponent here force closed. So we're kind of black screened here. I'm just going to go ahead, close it down, see if I can't come back into the app. Sometimes this triggers it to push through. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait 30 seconds because my opponent closed out of the app instead of waiting the extra 5 seconds to see the screen. So there you can see that he did disconnect, but it's about to kick off here right as soon as it hits 20 usually. So there it is. And of course, you don't see my chest come in, but let's see what it was. It was a silver. We have some gems. Maybe I'll just clear up one of these just to get, gold or platinum possibility. I have no clue as to how close I am to any of that, but let's keep going here. Keep grinding away. Hopefully that helps you somewhat on that shootout. I'm going to try my best to get to as many shootouts as possible, but at the same time, I do have a lot of these shootouts covered, so it's really not something that you necessarily need, but I understand that is where you win or lose most matches. But if you keep in mind all these things that I kind of teach and talk about, and always factor them in for your own shots, you'll find that, you'll do better than not. Keeping all those factors in mind and, playing a systematic approach like I do for all of the shots that I do. Now, this is definitely one of the harder holes. You can see my opponent using a katana here. What I recommend is a Titan ball for the second shot. Especially with a sniper, we're really going to need a lot of range and he got too aggressive there and almost put the ball in the water. So one of the things, especially when you're putting curl, you want to make sure that you're aiming far enough right to accommodate, because what happens when you curl is it over curls and it'll land more left in this situation. So we are going to be using the max number. There is a slight downhill here factor. So I am going to just kind of increase this either +5, +10, somewhere in that. But, I need to make sure that 4.3 rings is clear. I'm also not going to really use any spin whatsoever. So as I mentioned, just make sure that you're kind of landing away from the edge just a little bit more than my opponent did. If I'm going to use, because you can see that landing zone is a little bit down lower into the fairway. So you do need to just factor that in. And let's see, I should be able to get this to stop right short, and it looks like I did. Do keep in mind that in headwind scenarios, you might need more topspin. In tailwind scenarios like that, especially as it gets stronger, you might want to back off a little bit. So here you can see this is a very pleasant wind for my opponent. Of course, it's helpful to me. I have a better angle than he does at the pin. And especially with the extra distance ball that I have, it kind of gives me, you know, a brief edge. However, with the tailwind situation, we should both easily be able to get there, and it's just going to come down to shot execution. What I try to do here is play less aggressive. So sometimes I see guys go at the hole, which is something that I never do, because when you aim a little too aggressive, you can potentially bring this bunker into play over on the side. This is all I do, is what you just saw my opponent do. Same thing I do, and that's the way that I recommend you guys do it. Never go at the hole here. You know, just put it in play. So let's take a look. You already know we're going to be using the max club here. And we're going to be landing beyond max club, which means that you know that you're going to be using max club for at a minimum. You'll be at minimum at a max club. With a little bit of overpower, I might even adjust just a little bit more. I try to stay below 2 top spin pretty much at all times when I'm landing on this fairway, and it looks like landing right about here is what I'm going to want to do. So there's 5 rings, there's 10, there's 11-ish, and I'm also going to want just a little bit of power, as you can see. And as I mentioned, you know, I try to stay away from getting too aggressive and just play it into the center of the green. I don't need to get risky with this shot. I don't try to do anything fancy. I just try to get it in play and make sure that I can easily get this eagle. There's very little use for going at the hole here. I've made it very, very few times, and you know, I've made it fewer times than I've put it in the bunker. So with that in mind, that's one of the main reasons to not get in aggressive, because it's usually within a 1-ring difference between bunker and that's how aggressive you have to be. Is it either 1 ring great balls into the bunker, or a perfect ball goes towards the pin? And that's even with a sniper. So you have like 1 yard margin of error. It's a very, very small window. So let's take a look here. I typically don't use elevation. If I do, it might be plus 5%. You can see that I shoot over. This is very, very flat hole, but I do shoot over low spots in the bunker and that river. So that might be the only reason that I use 5%. You can also see here that I'm towards kind of mid club a little bit. So I'm thinking, you know, somewhere around here, 9.6 rings. You can see, what did I use? Maybe 70-some% or something. And you'll see what I'm doing with my ball guide. And 9.6 on the rings. And it looks like coming up just a tad bit short. So I might have been just a little bit heavy on my ring play there. And that might end up costing me on the shootout. I haven't played this hole in a while, so I wanted to make sure. And, you know, another thing, you know, that plus 5% might be just a tiny bit heavy, but also with the slider, I might have been a little bit heavy as well. I'm trying to get a look at this span. There's max, which probably put min down around here. What did I use? 70? It was probably more like 50% club. So let's take a look here at around the 50% number, 9.2. What was I at? Maybe 9-ish rings, because it looked like I came in. It looks like I was almost about one too hot. And as I mentioned, it's probably, you know, somewhere around 0 to 1%, like maybe 1 or 2%, not a full 5, because you can see how flat this hole actually is. What did my opponent do? I wasn't even paying attention there. Look, was he going for a rough bump? I'm assuming. In any regard, it looks like I was able to hold on. Typically, you know, another thing that I might have done, and I can't really tell, is I might have short hit it a little bit too. So you do want to watch that, because I don't know that I for sure got that pulled into the center of the shot circle. So that might have also made it come up just a tiny bit short. But you can see overall, you know, I had the right idea. I probably just landed 1 ring shorter than I wanted. So keep that in mind. But also see, you know, that I was able to pull that one out. You know, just like you guys, I'm a little bit, you know, I haven't used, you know, a lot of these, you know, in all these tours, especially these early ones. I pretty much stick to tour 10, tour 11, or tour 12, pretty much primarily, and it's usually only 11 and 12. So with only playing 11 and 12, you know, I can make some mistakes from time to time on some shootouts just from, you know, lack of preparation. But, you know, all in all, it'll be pretty easy to figure out. Just be sure when you're pulling the distance slider, you're using the distance that you're pulling to. So you need to figure out what that pull to distance is, not where you start at all times. So let's see. There's a couple different ways I can go here. Having a little bit more range might keep me a little bit safer. So I'm thinking about making the switch up here and just going with the extra mile, having a couple extra yards. Plus, I think, yeah, well, topspin's probably right around. You'll only need to play probably about 2 rings here. I'm not even going to push it in because it's such a small ring play. And in terms of overpower, I'm going to go probably about half. Now, I will end up pushing this in just so you guys can see. Oh, looks like it might be coming up a little bit short. Let's see if it runs through. Yep, so not quite enough. It might end up costing me the hole. It's going to come down to perfect ball. So let's take a look here. Power 3, 4.5. As I was mentioning, you know, I was expecting it to be about 2 rings, and it was about 2.2. So and I just needed just a little bit more power. Not very much. But with that being said, you know, we can still easily hold this out pretty much in any wind scenario. It's going to be a very, very short club. So what I'll do is I'll typically put it right on the very front of the green, make sure that I'm not around any glitchy spot. So everything looks good. For this shot, I can just kind of put it maybe just right off the edge here. Make sure you don't short hit it. Other than that, it comes down to perfect ball. Perfect ball. So sure enough, doesn't affect you driving in the rough if you can, you know, execute your pitch. So I was not paying attention when I started this stream. I'm assuming that I'm probably about a half hour in. Oh, here's an interesting one. I didn't even know Milano was in here. What I typically do here is a rough bump. Now, what this is going to be a little bit more towards max here with this one. So 6.5. I'll usually, you know, play just a little bit of an over. So let's go ahead and kind of figure this out. And, you know, I know I'm going to be pulling up towards max, so you're going to see me do that. And in terms of topspin, usually right around 4, give or take. So 8-ish rings here, right there. Also some curl. So curl, perfect ball. And this is my shot of choice for this hole, and you'll probably see why. You can see that, you know, especially if I play wind effect, I can hit this in there very close, and I'm able to. And as, you know, you can see that it is a little bit downhill from the take shot view. So I did put on a plus 5%. If you're not using the new wind direction, you'll remember that you probably had to overplay this significantly, especially in winds like that, which were angled. But you can see that we can just kind of take care of this hole with ease. And that's one of the biggest reasons you don't see me use Guardian. is the extra ball guide. As soon as you can upgrade, and if you were watching my Tour 7 stream, you'll see that I had to use Guardian. That's because my sniper was only a 7. You really got to get to the point that it becomes an 8 to really be able to use the sniper at a high level, because it doesn't have enough backspin for all the shootouts. So what you'll see is I'll use the Guardian until sniper gets to an 8 when I play Tour, because I can win a higher percentage of the games if I can cover all my bases on the shootouts with backspin as opposed to ball guide. Backspin is a higher attribute for shootouts than ball guide is, especially once you learn the dynamics of how Guardian rolls out with, say, 4 or 5 backspin. So when you crank it up to 5, 5.5, stuff like that, if you know how it's going to roll out past 3 bounces anyway, that's really what you want to be doing. So let's keep going here. As you can see, we keep getting kind of some of these longer holes, and I have to kind of keep using Titans. So hopefully you guys are kind of saving your balls, or just kind of limiting your Tour play during the week. If you don't, if you're not earning these balls in the tournament, you can see with a lot of the way that they've been pushing these new holes, especially these Eagle Peaks, stuff like that, you're going to find that oftentimes you need the Titan ball just to give you that extra range. Oh, wow. So I'm playing somebody with a Thor 7 in Tour 8. You don't see that every day. So this is one of the most hilarious things I ever saw. Is this going to land in the rough? What kind of shot was that? Yeah. Did he do that intentionally? Looks like it even ends up in the rough too. Okay, so if I do keep this club on, I can definitely land in that other fairway. You might want to put on you may want to use the full topspin here. Try to get it as far up as the fairway as you can for a nice Goliath type. And you can see that it's mostly downwind here, or, flat, maybe just a tiny bit uphill. And there you can see perfect ball. I'm trying to kind of optimize this fairway a little bit. So let's see what we can do here. So here you can see what I'm trying to do is get it down to the long iron. It's going to be a lot easier than a sniper shot will be. So in terms of what, I forget what that wind was, but let me just kind of plug this in here just so you guys can see kind of what happened in terms of with that shot. So somewhere around here, 3.5 rings at max. But a lot of times, especially on drives, you don't need a lot of precision. So sometimes I'll just forego using that. Because I can visualize the shot. I know 1 ring's not going to cost me. So even if my error was 1 ring, if my calculation in my head was off by 1 ring, it pretty much wouldn't affect me too much. So what we pretty much have to do here is use the backstop, unfortunately. Saturn, you can put enough backspin. You can also see that my opponent here kind of really got bailed out with a straight tailwind. So let's take a look here. We are going to be towards max a little bit. There is a little bit of uphill that you can see that it is higher ground. So I'll probably reduce my ring adjustment and play pretty close to max here, somewhere maybe around here with an angled wind, kind of like this, -10. So right around maybe 2.7. And we're just going to try to play the backstop here. Try to land right, usually maybe somewhere around here, I'm thinking. So let's try this, see what it looks like. Of course, 2.7 right towards the front edge of the bunker here. Perfect ball. And let's see how my shot. I would have liked that to get a little bit higher up the hill. Usually when you get it higher up the hill, it goes more towards the right. So, you know, especially with the limited guide and not being in this tour for a while, and not to mention, I don't typically do that shot, even when I do play, because when we played the tournaments, what I would do is I would just use the Saturn. I'd use about a 7 backspin Saturn, or 6 to 7, and try to land it like right on the hole, and then just have like just the tiniest bit of rollout, you know, under a yard, and try to get that 4th bounce rollout to just kind of slide into the hole. So I did have to play that just a little bit different than what I typically do. And, you know, as you could see, I was a little bit lazy with getting that up the hill with the limited ball guide. I wanted to make sure that I didn't wind up on the back fringe, but as I could see now, I had plenty of room. Now, this hole is downhill. How much? You know, not too sure off the top of my head. We'll take a look at the view. And we're going to have to switch to sniper here. We are going to be almost at max, but pulling back from max. Now, what I typically do here is I typically aim for this rough bump. And I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of kind of putting my guide like this, right around 1 backspin. And you can see towards max is going to be about 10 rings here. And you can see that it is downhill. And I did use, what, -5. And it looks like maybe -10 would have been a little bit better. So probably could have used somewhere in the neighborhood of 10.8-ish rings. And maybe just a little bit more aggressive line there on the rough edge for a start. Because you could see I was probably about a ring light on my adjustment. So if I would have great balled that over, it would have been a little bit better. And you could see we were very close to max, but we were pulling back. And that is pretty much going to, you know, take me out of this shootout altogether. My opponent doesn't have to go for the rough bump at all. Just needs to hit the fairway and he wins the shootout. So the result of that is it's pretty much going to cost me this one no matter what, because my opponent doesn't even really have to hit the green. But he did hit a nice shot anyway. I would have been able to get in that with the rough bump, and that's why I typically do it. But as you could see, my calibration was just slightly off, and I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of +10 there for that shot. So let's keep rolling here. See if we can't get back on track here. Tailwind situation, I'll typically go for that second fairway there. It's worth the gamble. Again, you know, we kind of got to stay on the Titan ball. You can see a lot of the holes, especially the ones that we're getting, they're very length driven. So if you guys don't have the Titan balls, you really put yourself at a disadvantage here. You can see my opponent here playing with a Marlin. Can be done. This is far too risky. I mean, why even do this? This can wind up right in the rough. It is going to come back out, but like that's so unnecessary. Like you don't need to hook it like that at all. I mean, you just need slight curl to get it over there. It doesn't need to be, none of that, all that was overkill. But as I was kind of mentioning, going down this way is kind of going to be better. And typically what I'll choose to do, if I can get it down here, it's going to be, you know, much more rewarding. And typically here, maybe 3.5 rings. I can input this after I go. That great ball might end up costing me. Maybe shouldn't have got that risky. Yep. So there you can see, it ends up costing me, and I might lose this hole, because now my opponent's going to be able to get to the green even with a marlin. You know, I can go over to the right there and always reach the green. It's the safer play, but I didn't think that that shot was going to be as high risk as I made it. So, you know, unforced error. However, you know, we're not out of this hole entirely. So I do want you guys to always know that. Here you can see my opponent does get it up here easily. Doesn't mean he's going to win just because he's up here by the fringe. So, you know, don't ever give up on your shot here, because I can put this up here in perfect position and still, you know, give myself a 70-80% chance of being able to hold this. So similar with you guys, you know, you can get out of this mess that you put yourself in, even with weak nirvanas, stuff like that. We can just get it up here to an appropriate distance. You know, this was pretty much the worst case scenario wind. So it is going to make things in my life just a little bit tougher for me to get to this shootout. However, I'm not, you know, by any means out of this just because of an errant tee shot. But what you do want to do is try to eliminate the mistakes, especially driving mistakes like that. So let's take a look here. There's a couple different ways I can go about this. I can go for a dunk, or I can go, it's going to be a little bit tougher to go front door here because you'll be coming in from the fringe. So you might want to test, you know, I'm just trying to figure out where I am. I might be a little bit towards max, or towards mid, I mean, but you can see it's significantly uphill. So I might play this somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 3.5 per ring. I might just go for the dunk here. Might as well. It's not a shot that really requires the dunk. And you're also going to see I probably won't backspin it. And the reason that I'm not backspinning it is because it's pretty much do or die. If I miss the hole, I'm not going to beat the guy. So it had to go in. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3 per ring or so. Oh, thanks. So the guy wants to be a total jerk about it. Just for that, I usually don't like the rematch, but I'm going to at least re-up with the guy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You get lucky and steal one and then run after running your mouth. So ain't nothing worse than that. Opponents that act that way. For the most part, you know, I just let them, you know, be ignorant and run their mouth. There ain't nothing to get upset about. If you play your game, you know, you put yourself in a very good chance to beat guys like that 90% of the time. So they think they're, you know, on some kind of power trip just by taking one game away. So let's keep going here, keep grinding through. I'm going to do probably about 15 more minutes. I'm not exactly sure how long an hour is. I should have looked at the clock. And one thing that I don't like about the app is it doesn't show me how long my recording is until I stop it. So let's keep going here. This is a very good hole, especially with this wind, trying to get the albatross. Now, what you will see on this hole is the ball will typically end up launching a little bit farther. I don't typically like to hook this one, but this is a very limited curling driver. Still not going to hook it because I do, you know, this is a very good wind. It's at least pointed towards the hole. So I'm just going to try to do it like this. And it should have enough curl to at least keep me, you know, it's going to be a little bit left than I want, but it probably, I was about to say it's probably going to stay out of the rough, and then it still doesn't. But that was pretty much caused by my great ball more than anything. The great ball towards the left pushed it just a little bit more towards the rough there. It doesn't take you out of the hole in any way. So that's one of the main reasons that I'll play the drive aggressive like that, because we're still going to be able to get to the green, do everything that we would have been able to do otherwise. So it really doesn't matter. It affects us in no way. So this looks like it's probably actually going to roll off the green into the rough. One of the biggest reasons that I discourage kind of playing a shot like that, if you want to use a full backspin type shot, it's better to play it towards the back of the green there. And here you can see we're going to be maybe about 60-70% club. Oh, I don't have the right nirvana. I'm not going to risk doing that shot then. Well, I'm not going to risk doing it that way with the notebook tool. I'm going to just do it off of feel. If I don't have the right club on. So I'm thinking maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 rings or so. Somewhere right around here. Looks pretty good overall. It looks like I might have just had like a misalignment of sort, or the fact that when you pull down to a lower hill, like lower on the hill, it tends to kind of land a little bit short. So I might have maybe under pulled my rings, or I should have just kind of pulled maybe just a little bit more left, because it did look like it landed right about where I start. Oh, that just caught the edge. So, the height seemed to be about right, but probably since I was pulling down to lower ground like that, it probably landed a little bit short, which landing short, especially on, it probably means I under-adjusted just slightly. But at the same time, you do need to pull up kind of towards higher ground. So if I would have over-adjusted just a little bit more and then pulled back up, or pulled at a slight angle, it would have probably been a better shot. So let's take a look at this one. This is a very easy hole for me to play to a high level. I usually do the rough bump here, and I usually use I would imagine probably close to mid club here. You can see I'm not really going to use elevation here, and the biggest reason for that, as you can see, is the fact that there isn't really any. So didn't quite pull back enough. Let's take a look at mine. First thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to test the range of the club. I'm going to be pulling back towards mid-club, so I'm going to use mid-club on the adjustment. We're very, very close to mid-club on the adjustment, somewhere around here. Because I'm pulling back towards this. So that's the biggest reason that you'll see me use that. It looks like I might need just a slight amount of topspin. I'll usually offset my guide to kind of play the wind effect. So that's what I'm doing there. 10.9 rings, somewhere right around here. And of course, I hit a great ball. So it's not going to be as close as I wanted. In fact, you can see that it rolls up into the fringe. Man, my timing's just a little bit off right now. If I would have hit perfect ball, that never would have rolled through the fringe, and it would have been, relatively perfect. Usually, usually I'll play it just a slight bit different than that. I'll try to land just a little bit more right, more left there, and just kind of angle my side spin up through the center there, so that specifically doesn't happen on a great ball. Getting a little bit sloppy just in the way that I'm doing this, just from, not being used to going back to tour play. But that's typically what I'll do, is I'll try to kind of land just a tiny bit more left so I can angle the spin up through the center a little bit better. And what that usually does is allows a great ball to still sneak through there, and a great ball would only cost you a yard or two. I'd probably still be inside 2 yards and it wouldn't have rolled up into that fringe. So let's take a look here. For the most part, we're going to be able to play this a little bit differently. In fact, last time you guys saw me play it with a Titan, we could have just played more strategy and put it out in the middle of the fairway and just played the sniper shot into the green and just given up on the albatross. What I tried to do is since we did have a tailwind, I tried to get a little bit more aggressive to give myself that chance at the albatross. But with a wind like this, since albatross pretty much is going to go out of the window, the biggest thing that wow, that is a really good lucky break. However, it is going to slide into the rough because of all that extra rollout on that hill. So what we can do in this situation is I can switch down and go to Navigator here, about 4 rings or so, a little bit of curl. And as long as you can kind of curl it and eliminate having all that rollout, you should be able to stay out of that rough. So you can see how my opponents kind of slid along and just kind of took off, especially if you just kind of put some kind of curl towards the right, it kind of keeps it out of that rough. But when you get that low rollout, you can see that it, does put you in trouble there. But again, doesn't necessarily take you out of this hole entirely. You just need a little bit more favorable wind. And even there, there's a good, at least 80% chance he can put that in from there. Just going to depend on the third wind. However, we can still take care of business here and, hit a really good shot and potentially use this backstop. So what I'm going to try to do is just kind of guess how much of the backstop I can use. We're going to use the max club, which I'm assuming is going to be somewhere up in here. A little bit of power. And, I'm not trying to be very exacting here. Just trying to get it hopefully back on this and just try to get it going towards the hole. It looks like you can see I would have had to play just a little bit more aggressive to get that fully back over towards the left. But if I could play it back up there high towards the fringe, there's a chance that you could get that to roll up in. Now, when you do these pitches, you'll want to stay off of the fringe. So this is a very risky move to do. You can see my opponent's putting it on the fringe. Anytime you put it on the fringe, it does make it a lot harder to have consistency on the rollout. However, you can see it is able to go in. However, if you are missing, that could be a significant reason as to why you're missing a lot, is because that you tried to put it on the fringe and the ball guide didn't roll out the way that it showed. Especially, when you're landing on one surface and then your second bounce is on another surface, it kind of changes the complexity level of the shot because you can never anticipate that second bounce being exactly the way that you intended it when you go from surface to surface. And of course, we get to the long iron hole that I was mentioning, and it's the one time that I take away the Titan ball. But this is the hole the only hole that I brought the Goliath for. And of course, I'm going to be at a severe disadvantage now because not only does my opponent have a better Goliath, but he has a better ball on the Goliath. And, it's going to make my life just a little bit tougher. Now, I'm trying to think what I usually do with backspin. I think it's somewhere between 1 and 2. But I'm not very well versed at this. And you can see my opponent here with the great ball. It's actually better than this perfect ball was going to be. So completely bailed out. But let's see what we can do and see if we can't come in here and somehow steal this. It might be better for me to actually play kind of more of a min sniper here, to be honest with you, since I don't have the power range. So a little disappointing here. 6.8-ish. So let's take a look, see if I can't sneak one out here. It is coming towards the hole. So fortunately enough, I was able to still pull that off using my ball guide, using the slider, using the wind direction. So, you know, hopefully you guys can be a little bit creative. Of course, I'd love to use Goliath there. It has a little bit better... it has just a little bit better chance of hitting a perfect ball because it's a slower needle. So that's one of the biggest reasons there that I like that. Now, we're one away from a pin chest, so let's just do one more hole. Vineyard Acres, par 5. And once again, you can see all these holes are very much stacked kind of against you. Oh my goodness. That makes it even worse. If you steal Eagle on this, Eagle is almost for sure going to win when you get situations like this. So one of the things that you can do to kind of lengthen your tee drive a little bit would be a extra mile ball, or not an extra mile, Kingmaker. And in fact, with my opponent having, you know, this lucky pig, it might be a little bit more advantageous for me to kind of play the Kingmaker into this headwind just to try to level the playing field a little bit. However, you know, there's very low risk that he's going to be able to get to the green. The next wind's going to have to be an absolute perfect wind. Oh, wow. Does no, this account has them. I don't know. Just doesn't have that. So what you'll see I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go full here. I'm going to have to land relatively close to the edge, but hopefully I can pull that off with just a little bit of curl. And surely enough, you know, I have pretty good faith in this. I might not be down quite as far as my opponent, but I do expect it to be, you know, a very comparable shot. And maybe just, you know, I was a little bit more aggressive towards the tree, holding it. And as you can see, we did get straight in the face here again. So one of the things most guys will try to do is they might try to force the issue, try to run it up there towards the green. I highly recommend not doing that. So the way that you're going to see me do it is I'm just going to lay up in the fairway and take my chances with the pitch. And there's a couple different ways I can make the pitch. I can either go for the pitch straight up, or I can what was the other? Go for the dunk. So as I mentioned, you know, I don't recommend getting aggressive here. So right around here with a layup, and we're just going to pull up towards max. And we're just going to put this right in position to where we can give ourselves a very good chance. And as long as I stay below that marker there, I'll be close in the power. But if I stay short of that marker, I actually keep it one club back. And it's actually a lot easier to make this thorn dunk. If I do choose to go for the dunk, if I stay in thorn distance, it's pretty much almost automatic with a perfect ball, because I'll be right at min club. It's a lot easier than the last one that you saw me do. Now, this may or may not roll in even with perfect ball. There you can see my opponent was able to get it. However, it gives you no advantage to kind of play it the way that my opponent did. You know, I make it just as much, if not more, than most people. It looks like I did get in between clubs here. So this may be a time that I missed this. It looks like I need to just slightly short hit this. But I do recommend this dunk here. And that's what I'm going to try to do, because I'm about one ring too much here. So what I need to do is I need to kind of play it over towards a ring, kind of like this. And I'll just need to kind of short hit it intentionally. So I'm thinking, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of this. So surely enough, there you can see I got the eagle. Like I said, 9 out of 10 times, that would pretty much be a victory. You know, it's really good execution when you play a guy that is able to, you know, especially rolling it up there in through the rough, and still manages to get that one. So let's take a look here. Of course, I always like my odds once we get to the shootout. So you can see the wind. So one of the things that you can do is just kind of set your direction ahead of time. So if I know that it's going to kind of be this direction, I can just set the direction. So that'll just be, all I'll need to do is check mark it if I set it up ahead of time. So that is one of the advantages to going second. Other than that, this is going to just come down to wind effect and slider positioning. So let's see. The first thing that you'll see that I'll do is I'll just kind of guesstimate. And it looks like that's coming in quite a bit too hot. So this should be very easy to beat. You know, when you put it 5 yards, you really don't give, you don't really give, you know, much of competition. So, you know, it should be somewhere maybe right around here. And again, as I'm mentioning, just kind of playing the wind effect. So I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of here. And you can see that we're kind of close to mid club. As I mentioned, we'll just have to kind of reset that. And we're just going to essentially use a mid club number here. So somewhere right around here. And as I mentioned, you know, usually the person who plays the better wind effect is the person that wins. Not to mention, you know, you can't roll through this whole 5 yards. This is a significant misplay. In fact, surely enough, you can see there I'm able to roll that one in much better than the first time that you guys saw me play it. You know, that was kind of the first time that I've seen this hole since I've been using the app with the new. And it's a lot easier once I see stuff the second time and start thinking about this stuff. So good luck, guys, with your Tour 8 here. Hopefully you find this video helpful and you can start to kind of do this systematic type approach for all these holes. I do think the more that you practice with the tool, the more familiar you're going to be. As you can see, even for me, you know, sometimes the first time that I slide through using it can make things just a little bit more tough. However, if you learn from your mistakes and you're able to figure this stuff out, you should really put yourself in a position to win a lot of tour games. So, you know, let me know how your progress is going, and good luck. And I will see you guys for a part 2 stream of Tour 8 in, you know, a couple days, whenever I can get around to making it. So good luck, and I'll catch you guys later.